Hey, what's up, Job Seeker Nation? Welcome to our show. We're Job Seeker Nation. That is the name of the show, streaming to you on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock Central. We have a lot of goodies coming up and a lot of big discussions. But first, I want to be sure we introduce the panel. As always, it's Jack Kelly on the other side of me, founder of Recruiter.io, Forbes Senior Careers Contributor. He is a compliance recruiter and he has special powers. And, we just don't talk about it that much publicly. You'll have to get with me afterwards. But
Right.
nevertheless, we have a couple of guests with us. One is going to join us later. One here is Ryan Rhoten. That's the man. That is the guy right there with the glasses. Of course, you notice all the features around with him. He has the great big mic, so you got to
You
give
can
him,
see it. You can
got to
see it.
make a lot of room for him in the
Yeah.
bandwidth. But anyway, brand new you podcast has been going on about 6, 7 years now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ryan? You got
Yeah,
like you got like almost 300 episodes about
the
it, right?
the the first episode released in 2015.
Yeah, okay,
And
that's what it
and,
was.
and I've slowed down production. It used to be a weekly show, but I've slowed down production significantly as my business has started to grow. So
Yeah, and you've been writing books and speaking at conferences, et cetera, et
a few
cetera,
of
et
those
cetera.
things,
So,
yeah.
yeah, he's been lucky. One of the reasons why we have Ryan and Andy, who will be in a little bit, they wrote a book called LinkedIn Made Simple, Fast Strategies in a Thin Book. We're going to hear a little bit from their perspective today. And so we want to get on with the show. If you have questions, feel free to put that in the chat. We'll be glad to answer them. What you have to say matters a whole lot more than what we have to say in this particular forum. So we want to be sure that we get your questions in. Say hi to us in the chat. Tell us where you're from. And if you know Ryan, just be sure you say hi to Ryan. You already know Jack and I. So therefore, we will go ahead and get started. Andy's going to miss his first question, though. I'm going to come back to him to answer it because I'd be interested in his take on it. And we want to get Ryan's take. He'll be the first one since he's the guest in the house. Topic number one. Now, I think about this all the time, and I think that I probably daily, but I like you guys' opinion. I wish job seekers would do more blank and less of blank on LinkedIn. Now we know there's certain practices. We know there's commenting and there's posting. So let's exclude that. That's a given. We know that's what gets everything going. But Ryan, what are your two blanks?
Yeah, so I mean, you have to rephrase the sentence slightly, but really be more strategic and do less guessing. I see a lot of people
Ah,
that are just trying to like they don't know how to strategically go about reaching out, and so they just kind of guess at what they should be doing, and it's like throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks when
mhm.
they could be much more laser focused with some good strategy.
Ah, very good, Ryan, with the short radio answer. I like that. Jack,
Yeah.
the two blanks for you.
So it's interesting. So I'm looking at from where I'm going on LinkedIn. A lot of the times, what I'm looking for is candidates for jobs. So one of the things I would like to see more of, where they have full descriptions of who they are, what they do, what they're about, and what they want to do next. Because,
Mhm.
and again, selfishly, this is more of like, all right, if I'm searching for an assignment, it makes my life so much easier that I could see, okay, this is Ryan. He's a career coach. He's a writer. He's a book writer. He's an author, podcaster. Oh, okay, I get what he does, and then it makes my life so easy to recruit him. And then I guess
Mhm.
less of having that haphazard kind of profile that you kind of, again, this is kind of selfish, where you get stuck on it. Like, I'm trying to figure out, do they really do what I think they need? And I'm trying to decipher what they do. and it just then becomes kind of a turnoff because like, you know what, I can't figure this out. I'm just going to move on to somebody else who really does the job.
Yeah.
So I was not
It's
as
all-
concise as Ryan at all. I was like not the radio voice answer at all. I was the antithesis of that.
It's about positioning and messaging, right? It's
Yeah.
about positioning and messaging. If you don't have a strategy to help people understand what your position is and the messages behind it, you're gonna turn people off. And you don't turn them off in that they're offended. You turn them off in that we have very short time spans today. And if I can't, if you confuse me and I can't figure out what you do, I'm just going to move on to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you said it much more succinctly than I did.
I've
That
been
was
practicing.
good. Yeah.
I've been walking around here just practicing answers all day long.
but you know, Ryan, it's very interesting because I think, just to clarify your comment just a little bit more, because I do a few guessing bids every now and then because I like to experiment and all that. And Andy is a big experimenter. So
Yep.
when we say guess, it's not you're guessing to be strategic or guessing to see what actually works. You're guessing because you're unsure of
Right.
the way you should present yourself. That is that the
100%.
way that you're okay.
Yeah,
Okay. I just want to be sure
100%.
that's clear. Yeah, because I think guessing is good if you're trying to find out what works and if it seems like if it's a tangible fit for you at that particular time. But you're seeing that maybe because of visibility, or maybe it might be a misrepresentation at the time. You're figuring that maybe you need to try something else. Because I know I try a bit, and in the forums that we're all in, including the one on Facebook, which we're all a part of, we're always talking about, does the comma fit here? Does the emoji fit there? Should we or not use an emoji? Should we use other characters? We're always talking about those things. And for some degree, the algorithm is still a guess, no matter how many career coaches or anybody else would say, I've broken the algorithm. This is why I get 500 likes on some posts. Nobody really knows.
Yeah. Remember, there's a difference between guessing and guessing with a purpose. Like,
Right.
and I think, strategy, in order to have a strategy, you have to have a goal. And that's where I think that's our book actually starts with that. It's like, what is your goal with LinkedIn? What do you want to achieve? Knowing that becomes the difference between guessing and guessing with a purpose or being more strategic.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. Jack, in your particular case, I know that you go with the purpose for everything that you do. You just don't hang out for any reason at all, like we do sometimes. But all that to say is that when you see people just making straightforward presentations, it's a whole lot better than people trying to still struggle with their identity online. They think that needs to be different online than offline. I think that's part of the problem.
So you're asking in terms of like when people present themselves, what?
Right. When you're looking for candidates, you're looking for the best presentation.
Yeah.
That usually wins you over. Right?
Yeah, it's interesting because like whether presentation, because sometimes like I hear presentation like how it looks, I'm okay. For me, if their LinkedIn profile isn't so great, but I care more that they're able to detail, here's my title, this is what I do, here's my responsibilities, maybe a little bit of what they want to do next. So then I get a really good appreciation. But if aesthetically it's not pleasing, I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me one iota because I care more about the substance of it. But everybody posts for different reasons, you know what I mean? So this is more of just understanding who this person, what they're doing and how. Now, for certain kind of industries and certain kind of jobs, I would suggest to somebody, yeah, I get what you do for a living, but you're kind of goofy. Instead of your picture, you have like a sports mascot, or you have your boat or your arm around a girlfriend or wife, and it's kind of cheesy. That's going to hurt your brand. So yeah, I guess I'm contradicting myself that in addition to putting forth, hey, what you do and what you're about, but you probably want to make sure you attend to your brand and you look the part of the kind of job that you want.
Yeah, and this is where Ryan's specialty actually comes in when we talk about brand management. It's almost like if you get punished You don't get punished. You get punished by LinkedIn if there's not enough information, but you also get a social punishment by being ignored, by not having enough and not having the clarity that
Wait,
you need. Right,
Mark, when you say punish, does that mean like with the algorithms, like it doesn't
right.
push as
I
much if you
think
have like another?
we're gonna dig into some of that because
I'm
we have
jumping
some
ahead.
LinkedIn
Sorry.
guys here. You give you this was an alley oop to Ryan. You're supposed to
Okay.
get that part, but yeah, I'm just talking about overall. Jack mentioned brand. We go ahead and bring in brand. It is ultimately about brand, right?
Hmm. Yeah, totally. And how you project yourself online. Like I always, one of the first things I always do with my clients, I'm not really in the career space anymore. I still do a little work there, but most of my clients still struggle with answering this one question, which is chapter 2, by the way, in the book. And I think strategy 2. What do you want to be known for? Like, what do you want people, like you just said a minute ago, when you go, like Jack, when you go to a profile, you're looking for that answer. What do people want to be known for? How's that? How are they positioned? What are they saying on that makes me think, oh, this could be the right person for that role, or this could be the right person for whatever. And it all comes down to how they position themselves and what they want to be known for. And if you can't answer that question, you really need to step back, because I want to be able to look you up 6 months from now or a year from now and see and go, okay, that's what Mark's all about. And you've strategically built that profile out, that brand, if you will.
Right, right. Something I want to also bring out too, and this wasn't part of our discussion, but I do think it applies here. Should people think about how companies brand themselves when it comes to their own personal branding, especially when it comes to LinkedIn? Ryan?
What do you mean by that? Like when think about
Well,
company brand?
let me take you back a little bit because a lot of the sessions that I've gone to that you see online when people talk about personal branding, they're building out their workshops. They used to, and some still do. They start talking about how Coca-Cola is a brand,
Mm-hmm.
and Apple's a brand. How you need to think about yourself
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
company. So on LinkedIn in 2021, is that still a relevant premise, or
I
is that
think it's
something that?
I think it's way more relevant. It's like the conversation you and I had a long time ago. You're a consultant and you're
Yeah.
essentially a business of one, and you need to think of it that way. I mean, companies hire consultants to come in and do a job to solve problems. That's no different than hiring an employee to come in to do a job and solve problems. And so
Mhm.
I think if you think of yourself rather as a consultant as opposed to an employee, the branding piece becomes a lot more viable in your mind. You're like, okay, this makes a lot more sense. Because most of the time when you think of yourself as an employee, you're just like, oh, I just got hired, I'm going to go do this job. But if you're a brand and you set yourself up as the person who can be the problem solver for the one thing that companies are hiring for, it's easier to elevate yourself above others.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
like that a whole lot. Jack, it looked
Yeah,
like you had
I
something
agree
on your mind.
wholeheartedly with that, Ryan, because
Mhm.
it's in a crowded space. In some industries, there's just a whole lot of people
Yeah.
that a company could want to hire or interview, and you need something. Where how am I going to stand out? Who am I? What am I going to do? So I would suggest, and it sounds, this is kind of right up your alley, right? That you want to create yourself. Let's say you're a tax accountant in New Jersey, just arbitrarily picking that. So you want to brand yourself that you're the go-to person for tax accounting in small businesses in New Jersey. So then your profile, when you contribute on LinkedIn, when you write different articles, or you just make comments, or you add to other people's comments, the whole time you're doing it is you're just brandishing your brand, so that when people think, okay, I need a tax accountant in New Jersey, who am I going to go to? Boom, I know this guy. He's on LinkedIn. He's always posting. He has really good commentary. He was just talking about the Roth IRA, and he was talking about
Yeah.
whatever kind of retirement plans. So that's a person. So, and I think that's key, because there's so many people, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, um, you kind of see them in other formats too, and you kind of question,
Mhm.
I don't know, I thought more of this person, but he's I don't know, it's kind of weird,
You're
and
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, your digital presence is
yeah,
you today. Like, and you have to be congruent everywhere. You have to be yourself everywhere. You have to be about whatever it is you are everywhere. That's not to say you can't be personal. It's not to say you can't interject some of your life into it, but I want to see congruency. Like, I don't want to see you talking about one thing over here, and then I go over here and you're talking about something else, and then over here you're talking about something else, and it's like it just confuses people.
Yeah, it's discipline, right? Right. It's like you have to have a disciplined approach to it. It sounds like where you may want to be, okay, I'm on Twitter, so I'm gonna F around on Twitter and just have fun, but that follows you. So maybe you don't. Maybe you have to sacrifice a little bit of, okay, you got, it doesn't. You want to do what, say something and it's outrageous, what have you, but maybe that's not really your brand. And you're going to find a potential client that sees that and say, I don't know if I want this guy representing me. So that, right. That's kind of what you have to do.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, every, like I very purposefully, you can't see all of my background, but there are things purposefully situated in this background that if people see it, they start to go, oh, okay. I have aspects of things in here that I want people to look at and resonate with. And you have to think about those kind of things. Like,
it's a trade-off, right? It's a trade-off.
We're like on a stage. It feels like all the time now. That's what the internet has done for us. It's a curse, and it's like a really big gift if you use it the right way.
Yeah, we just got to get your book more visible.
I can bring it forward.
Just hold it right in front of you.
Way back there. He's talking about positioning. So. No, but that's a great
right.
It's a great point, though, that you've got to have it. There needs to be, excuse the pun, there just needs to be have a great amount of focus on what you want people to know. Dixie, when it wrote, thank you very much for saying this. And people like Dixie are here and be watching on all the places where we stream, looking for a remote opportunity and learning all the changes that will support a new employment environment. Now, I don't know if there are necessarily changes. I think there's a change in attitude and where people should put their attention. And definitely LinkedIn now, for what we know, back in the day, back when you and I started our podcast, Ryan, and I go back to 2013, employers are pretty much checking on the back end to see if you had any dirt, so to speak, that they look for reasons why not to hire you. Now, these days, like Jack just talked about, recruiters and employers are looking at the initial to see how somebody is making decision whether they should bring somebody in or interview someone based on that first impression. So definitely with that shift in focus and in emphasis, that people need to pay a whole lot more attention to what their first impression actually is, right, Ryan?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what this book was about. not to plug my book, but that's literally what that's about, is how do you make that good first impression online? I mean, Jack, this would be interesting to hear from your perspective, but I think what social media has done for HR, talent management, and recruiters is it's given you the opportunity to see whether or not, or get a feel for whether or not someone can fit culturally within a company. And I think that's one of those things you can cultivate with your brand, or you can not cultivate it and get yourself a lost opportunity, because maybe you're posting stuff that just doesn't jive with the company, or you don't act in a way that the company kind of expects you to act as a professional.
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely. Because each kind of company, it has its own feel to it, its own corporate culture, its own milieu. You want to make sure, hey, does this person seem that they would fit within there? Sometimes it's hard to tell just from their postings where they fit, but it's a tell. It's like anything else. Like you kind of tick off points, like, this, they're saying where they're posting, this makes sense, or maybe this doesn't make sense, and you try to kind of analyze and see where they would fit. Let me throw this out to you guys. It's interesting. Like, I find personally, it kind of handcuffs me a little bit, because if as a brand, I'm writing for Forbes. I'm trying to put, smart, thoughtful kind of pieces together. I'm recruiting from mid to senior level executives. So I feel I have to have this certain level of seriousness when I do things. But as Mark would say, I enjoy much more just goofing off and having fun and joking around and being irreverent. And so that's really more of who I am, in that serious guy who have a brand, but I feel like
Embrace that.
I'm boxed into that. You know what I mean? Does that happen? Is
No.
that like,
Yeah, I mean, we all box ourselves into a corner at some point, but I also just firmly believe that you should embrace who you are, be who you are, because that's the person people want to hire. That's the person people want to talk to. Because so for example, I purposefully wore a t-shirt. Okay. If you work with me, I am not going to wear a suit and tie. I'm not going to wear a dress shirt. I'm going to talk to you in a t-shirt, because all of my business is done online. We sit in this type of environment, and I want people to know and understand that, hey, it's casual. We're going to have some fun while we do it. If you could see some of the other things that I have on this, you'd probably get that feel too. But like, it took me a long time to go from corporate employee mindset to where I am today.
It is hard,
And
right? People, especially people in our age group, would feel like you're so used to being one way that it's kind of a lot of friction, right?
Super tough. First year or so, I was like, oh man, I was behaving like a corporate employee instead of a business owner.
Yeah.
And at some point, I just, like, something clicked for me. Is like, you know what? You have to be you, because you don't have anybody watching over you anymore, putting this fake pressure. Like, it's probably, I mean, it is real at some places, other places it's not. But like, I personally, if you're going to work for a company, you got to be yourself. You can't go be somebody else and then get off the clock and now you're a different person. Like, you just got to embrace who you are. And I think companies are coming around more and more to that these days. But like, if you're a fun, jovial guy, like, be a fun, jovial guy.
Well, that brings up a great topic, because I was on Snowball's show a few months back in February, and she brought up the fact that I had a suit and tie on in my picture. And she said, "What's up with that? Why are you?" But I've been thinking about that probably on a weekly basis. I'm going, I probably need to change that now. And it makes a whole lot more sense in what Ryan was saying. These days, if you're going to be in a suit and tie, that may not be relevant anymore. And of course, to kind of break away of, for me, not you guys, but the baby boomer curse, that we're so rigid and tight and so streamlined, and maybe the word professional may or may not apply. But I think all in all, having said that, there's some appropriateness to your profile picture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing where, you don't want the cutout picture with with your husband or your spouse's arm around you. That's definitely, beyond the scope. But the other part is, maybe now people can be more of themselves. And my friend, and give a shout out to my friend Scott Beeson, who has a book coming out called, talked about bringing your whole self to the workplace. I think that's where we're kind of at now, is that you bring you to, and so that nobody has to guess who you are, or maybe who you accidentally are trying to be. Jack?
Yeah, I agree with you. But I want to ask Ryan something. In terms of different social mediums, where, let's say, in Facebook or Twitter, where it could be more argumentative, more controversial, do you advise your clients just to stay away from that? Because even inadvertently, it could hurt your brand if you just engage in these dumb arguments. We all fall into it. You fall into that trap that you end up arguing. You're like, why am I arguing this stupid point? This is such a waste of time, and it's not going to make me look good. But what do you say to your clients?
Yeah. So before I even get to that discussion, I want to know who their audience is and where those people hang out. Because if your people are on Twitter, don't get on Twitter. Like, if you find yourself getting on Twitter and all you're doing is getting in arguments with people on Twitter, like, go delete your account. Because somebody's going to find all that stuff and they're going to hold it against you. So be where your people are. And in all honesty, a lot of those people are hanging out on LinkedIn today. And yes, LinkedIn is a little bit more professional platform, but it's also a personable platform. We look at Elaine's question, how can you have your personality come through on LinkedIn? Your personality shines every time you leave a comment. Like, you have an opportunity to let your personality out in comments. Your personality can show up in your LinkedIn banner. It can show up in your profile picture. It can show up how you write your profile. Those are different ways for people to get to know you. I mean, if you read my profile right now, I talk about how I have more titles than Daenerys Targaryen in my career. Okay, so I'm telling you, I watch Game of Thrones. That should tell you a little bit about me. B, I'm trying to use a little bit of humor, which should tell you that if we work together, it's going to be more fun. And 3, it's telling me that I get it. Like, I understand that we go through all these different titles and we can associate our identities with those titles if we let it happen. And so on your profile, like, think about the comments that you leave. You make an impression with every comment you leave. Don't do drive-by comments and click the button that says, good job. Like, leave a real thoughtful comment, and that will help your personality shine through.
And that's something very interesting, because I am one of the school, and probably one of the rare people. People often say, well, you can't read tone online. You can read tone online if there's context. If there is a context throughout the conversation, and here you come with something that is inappropriate, that is your tone, and that's the way that people will perceive you. But if you just say things online that people attack you, that's one thing. I don't think that happens as much on LinkedIn unless it's political, religious, or
you still see those posts.
Yeah, those things are kind of, you got to sometimes pass on those. But when you're having a regular discussion about issues that concerning your industry, I think that is your tone, and it is what way it appears. And you know the words you choose, you know what you say and how you say it does matter, and the way it's delivered matters. I think you can see those things, and I think when people think that people can't read tone online, you can. You just can, and I think that affects the way that people look at your personality. And it depends on how serious you want people to take you, or if people you want the levity to come across, then you have to use the words and the timing in order to express that. Jack, your opinion?
Yeah. And I would just add, if you don't mind, I'll add to Elaine's question and what Ryan was saying. So to really stand out, you want to make sure that you have, on your profile, like, all the stuff that's great for the job you're going for. So when they see it, you make their life easier. And then maybe you want to put something on there that just kind of, when you post something, you write something that would draw people in, that you're open to looking. Now, you may not want to put on that open to, open to work kind of banner, but just something that shows, hey, I'm going to be cool if you call me, if you get in touch with me, that'll be fine. So you could actually take the next step and just reach out directly to a recruiter, find somebody who, do the reverse thing, right? Instead of just waiting for them to search and find you, Elaine, kind of see, okay, who is in my space? Who are some of the recruiters, HR people, hiring managers, and then just seek them out. Link in with them, comment on everything they post. Use what Ryan was saying in terms of branding yourself, as the best in your field, and that's why they would choose you as someone else. So I would take kind of a proactive approach to getting in front of people instead of just waiting for them, to get in touch with you. And is it okay also if we just because we kind of did touch with Dixie? Is that right?
We could go back to Dixie in her issue about, well, we are kind of in the sense that she wants to look at, and I believe, and you can clarify this, Dixie, if you're looking at all the changes that will support, I'm thinking that all the changes regarding LinkedIn, or as opposed to the workplace, because our focus really is about LinkedIn, but it does have something to say about the workplace, is that how you appear on LinkedIn, people start to imagine what kind of person you're going to be working with, and your personality and your tone, all those things really matter. And I'd rather have somebody that I know work with me that shows himself and shows up on LinkedIn and everywhere else, rather than somebody where I have to guess who they are and I really don't know them after all this time. Is that a valid premise, Ryan?
Yeah, totally. Looking specifically at Dixie with her question, one of the things I would ask is, when you say remote opportunity, I mean, that's a thing. What do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do remotely?
Yeah.
And
What
what
we want you. We'll give you some help, Dixie. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
and
Ryan.
what are the changes that support the new employment environment? Like my first question is, I'm not really undersure or undersure. I'm
Understand
not
it?
really sure what that means, so I would need to
Mhm.
dig a little bit more into that. But if you're looking for a remote opportunity, one of the things that you're probably going to have to demonstrate to be able to do remote work is that you can communicate effectively through this medium. And
Mhm.
also with bosses who are somewhere else, like you're going to need to be able to give them weekly updates, those kind of things. Like, so what are ways that you can start to demonstrate today that you could thrive in that type of environment? Those are
Great
things that I would
question.
start to think about.
Yeah,
Do you,
definitely,
hey,
definitely.
there's a cat. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm down here. I'm shifting. If you see me shifting, I'm like
it must
moving my
be
cat away.
generous again.
Yeah. But all right, while Ryan is shifting, Dixie, I'll add this part too to amplify what Ryan was saying. Yeah, I think what I'm surmising what you're referring to is that now we're hybrid work model, remote is becoming really commonplace across the board. Um, I would reach out to the companies you want to go to and work for, no matter where they are. So that if you're in Alaska and you want to go to North Carolina or you want to go to wherever, go for it. Now, I'll give you this this caveat that even though, publicly they're saying, yeah, remote work, yeah. I'll tell you this, oftentimes I'll hear from companies saying, well, Jack, can you get someone who's kind of local? So don't get this. I would try, I would go after these remote positions, or even if they don't say remote, send your resume, send your LinkedIn profile and say, hey, I see this job. It's in whatever location. I'm interested. Here's why I'm great for that job. And let them let them say no. You take the chance, give it a shot, shoot your shot. You try for it. And if they pick up on it, great. If not, it wouldn't be just you. It's hard, just like Ryan was saying, when he was going from a corporate guy to an entrepreneur, it's not easy and it takes time. I think what's happening with these companies is the same thing. It's hard to change on a dime where you're like, all right, we're so used to butts and chairs in an office building. Now we're going hybrid and remote. So it's going to be this learning phase. So don't get frustrated if it doesn't happen right away, but definitely, absolutely go for it. Absolutely.
Well, you can also put on your LinkedIn profile in your headlines that you're located in a city, and that way people will understand. So, oh, that'll be the first impression I am looking at.
Yeah.
If I'm an employer, I'm seeing that person put their location, saying I'm from Chicago or located in Chicago. That means that person wants to attract a local employer. So that will give you an idea. So there's a lot of ways you can communicate. Unfortunately, what people have a problem with is communicating in a very short form, in a certain amount of characters to be able to express their message. And most people have an issue with that. And it's not because I'm not saying if you write a long post, that means you have a problem. I'm saying that you should be able to communicate some of your main ideas, and it shouldn't take that long to communicate, and it shouldn't be a long timeline before people figure out. Because the longer your timeline is, less people will become interested if they're looking down your timeline to figure out who you are. Other than if your profile doesn't say it, your timeline doesn't say it, then people will give up and move on. Anything else to add to that, Ryan?
No, I agree. I think there's a saying that I like to quote from Abraham Lincoln, which is, "If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter."
Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
Which
Yeah.
which means that, like, when you just kind of that's why this whole 3,000 character thing for me is like, I don't know about that, because I think if you
Mm,
can't say what you need to say in 1,300 characters, maybe you need to take more time editing. Like, to me,
mm.
the key to a good edit is subtraction, not addition. It's
Well,
elimination, not
well,
adding.
Well, I purposely waited to the end to kind of get on the topic that we talked about. And originally, the topic was I wish more people or wish job seekers would do more of writing a great headline, was mine original, and less of excluding the headline. Because to me, that's the first impression that I get. And probably I'm like a lot of people. When I go see your picture and I hover over it to see the little bubble that comes across or the badge or whatever you want to call it. And if you don't have the headline, it's hard to or you better yet, if you have a headline that's just full of titles, I can't figure out who you are or what you're like. And that's how fast that people can become disenchanted, if you will.
Yeah.
That that you can't. It's not straightforward. And I think if you can't write in that headline, and it takes time. I mean, even really good writers revise a headline all the time in order to get the right one or communicate the timeliness of their message as opposed to what their actual overall message might be. So I think those things are important. Jack, is that something you come across
Yeah,
as a recruiter? Does
yeah.
the headline matter more than
See,
the about section, or which one do you look at and put weight on the most?
it's interesting. Yeah, the headline's important, so important. But as you're talking, I'm thinking about it, and I'd be curious what Ryan thinks about this too. Is that I don't want to see people lazy because that's just too much of a general sweeping generalization. But I think on social media, sometimes people feel, whether it's LinkedIn or anywhere else, it's loose. It's social media. I don't have to be as uptight. I could just be whatever. And I think that shows out with the headline. It shows out with what they put on there because they don't realize how important and impactful it could be to get people to notice you. So you just kind of throw it out there and see what happens. Because there's so many that are like that it can't
Mhm.
just be coincidence. It's just they don't have someone like Ryan coaching them. Okay, here's what you got to do. You got to get your act together. You got to kind of have a narrative of who you are, what you're trying to do, and what you're trying to be. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of lackluster. Hey, let me put it on there, and whatever happens, happens.
Mhm.
Which is not really a great strategy.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I mean,
it's
always
not.
remember your photo, your name, and your headline go with you everywhere on LinkedIn. Like that's your business card.
Oh, can I ask you this? Just a logistics question. So it used to be I would see all these pictures. I see less pictures. Was there a change where you have to be like a first degree or second degree connection to see that picture, the photo?
Like your profile photo?
Yeah, yeah. Or is it just more people are not putting their photos on, and that's
I
just
think
a
it's just
trend?
either more people are not putting their photos on, or
Okay.
every now and then I notice LinkedIn will glitch and
Yeah,
like I'll log in on mobile or
yeah,
even go to desktop and I just don't see the images show up. I don't know why.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
sure
well,
Andy
I
can add some
definitely.
insight on that.
yeah. See
He
what
knows
timing,
Yeah,
why.
right? Like we
Andy
talked.
Andy knows why.
It's like a game of
timing
mini
is
softball.
everything.
It's like,
And
Well, hello.
for
What
those
was
of you who
what?
don't, I was going to introduce you, Andy. Andy is everything LinkedIn, everything about his site, his brand, and all of LinkedIn. He co-wrote the book with Ryan, who you see, LinkedIn Made Simple, Fast Strategies in LinkedIn book. And we were just talking about presentation in short. And I was asking people, the original topic was complete the sentence. I wish job seekers would do more of blank and less of blank on LinkedIn. And it was kind of spawned all this discussion at this particular point. So we want you to weigh in, Andy, and then maybe we can contextually get you where we were.
Yes. Well, I missed. I missed the just the last bit of the discussion. The question. What was the question again? Reframe it for me.
Well, look, the frame is I wish job seekers would do more of
Oh
blank.
no, I've got
And
that. I got that.
okay, you got that
All right.
part.
I can.
Okay,
I'll
Ryan, go ahead. I think you were
Why?
talking.
I think
We
it
were
was
kind of finishing up this
why.
one.
Yeah, why are profile pictures not showing up as much on LinkedIn? Is it because people are not adding a profile picture, or is there something else going on?
Oh yeah. So
Is that right, Jack?
yeah, yeah. Because I noticed, I would say over the last few months, so much so that I'm like, this can't be a coincidence. Something's going on.
yeah. So I haven't seen that, Jack. I
Yeah.
mean, I still see headshots. So I'm not seeing people not adding headshots.
It's
So
interesting. Huh.
yeah, I am seeing on LinkedIn Live if they are commenting and they are just the avatar. I know that that's happening because it's public settings that they need to go into and change if they want to be seen on in the chat and identified. I know that's happening,
Yeah.
but to mark By the way, hello, Mark Anthony Dyson. I mean,
Yes, sir. How are you?
It sounds so sophisticated when he says it, right? I love that.
well, you know,
I know, right?
I want to be called Andy and then middle name Foote. So thanks for having me, guys. The question posed. I wish job seekers would do more wolf and less of sheep on LinkedIn. Is my answer.
Nice. I like
Okay.
that.
Now, I have an acronym for wolf, and the acronym is wait, observe, learn, and forge. So I'll break that down. In terms of waiting, just don't jump in quickly and do what you've been told or what you've read or what you've seen others do. I want you to take a breath and I want you to take your time before you do anything at all. Observe, right? I want you to study and research what LinkedIn is and what it can do for you. So be an excellent student. Oh, hold on. Someone wrote a book about that.
What a coincidence. That's crazy. That's wild.
With strategies, actionable strategies. So yeah, you've got to approach it by, in a very systematic and research-based way. Learn, thoroughly understand the different options, techniques, strategies to execute your job seeker strategy. So there are lots of different ways to tackle LinkedIn. Only some of them are going to help you to move the needle and get to what you need. And you've got to figure out what works for you, not necessarily as what's working for others, or people are telling you that it's worked for them. You've got to do that yourself. It's the quickest way for you to learn and also to fail. Right? Some of these things are not going to work, but that's for you to figure out. And the F in Wolf is forge. You've got to forge relationships with decision makers, their second degrees, but also fellow job seekers. So you're all in. We're in it together. You're going to learn from those job seekers. You're going to learn what's working. But the decision makers, you're going to have a list of people. You're going to have a top 10 list of dream jobs at dream companies. You got to figure out who the decision makers are, and if you can't get to those decision makers directly, you got to figure out who's going to get you to that person. That's what I mean by second degree. So that's my WOLF acronym: wait, observe, learn, and forge.
Yeah, and just for viewers, Andy actually lives an hour from me. He's not over in England right now because of his accent, which comes across. But he lives an hour from me, so
Really,
just
right.
so that you guys know. So,
He's in London. He's not very. He's in the. Yeah, I know.
Right.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
in the same location. I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Accents
Yeah,
confused.
it is crazy. It is crazy. So anyway, Annette says hi, Andy. Just so you'll know, she's always joining us from where she is. Let's jump on to the other topics here. I think we could probably go another hour on that one, but I think that goes along with what Andy was saying. Is that other than commenting and posting, what are the best ways a job seeker get visibility? And I imagine we can use all of what we've discussed in the past 40 minutes, but I think there's some more ways that people can get visible. And we're talking about being visible to employers, to other job seekers, or people who may be able to refer you. And of course, depending on your strategy, makes all the difference in the world, right? So starting off with Andy, I'm going to let you continue. Other than commenting and posting, your ideas on getting more visibility.
Right. So it's funny how how life works out, but the very same question was asked by a connection of mine who's a prolific and strong content producer on LinkedIn, a guy called Joel Lalgee, Lalgee. Some of you guys may know of him. He's a recruiter, coincidentally. But his question posted recently was what he said, what are the best ways to get attention, to get on someone's radar without producing content? So he says 8 ways to get someone's attention without needing to produce any content, and he came up with 8, and I doubled it, and I got to 16. So his 8 were: send a connection request, follow them, like or comment on their content, which you could niggle. You could probably query, right? Because that's kind of producing content.
Sure.
Number 4, reshare their content or posts. Again, it's still in the content category. Send them a DM, send them a voice or a video message. Go to their recent activity and respond to a comment they've recently made. Number 8, tag them in a post that they might find relevant. So it's a derivative of content. Number 8. Number 9. So here's where I doubled and added mine. Create a group. Invite them to that group. Add them to a group message. And I don't mean a group message. I mean a message where you have up to 50 participants where you can get a convo started. Number 11, endorse one or a few of their skills. Number 12, offer to introduce them to anyone or someone. Number 13, write them a recommendation or offer to. Number 14, message a mutual connection and ask for an intro. What I said about getting on someone's radar via secondary. Number 15, ask them to guest on your podcast if you have one. Number 16, if they're complaining about a LinkedIn issue, ping LinkedIn help in your comment on their post, asking for an official response or help on their behalf. This is a technique I use all the time. And people, if they don't think about it themselves, perhaps don't know how to tag LinkedIn help, I do that. And invariably LinkedIn help will say, thanks, Andy. And then they'll try their best to be helpful. It's obviously in public, and it's good for them. It's good for the poster. Good for me as well, because I jumped in to help. So I think those are 6. I can post those somewhere. So it's not like you have to produce content. There are at least 16, probably more, ways that you can do stuff, either, derivative to content producing or around it, or having nothing to do with producing content. LinkedIn gives us lots of different avenues to pursue when we're trying to, do our thing and achieve our objectives.
Yeah, well, half of that is producing content. It may not be a long form content, but commenting is content. You appearing on a YouTube, posting that is, whether you're being interviewed 1 question or 20 questions, that is the content. So almost these days, your expansion of content has to include any kind of communication especially that's helpful. And I would say number 17 would be helpful to people. And you don't necessarily have to write a long content to be helpful.
Absolutely.
Jack?
Yeah, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because it was Joe or Joel? Joel? Is it
Joel Algie, yes.
And he has like a red icon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a black writing, right? Like it's not like a photo. So this is what's so interesting. This goes to what Ryan was talking about earlier before you came on about branding. I see him all the time, and my perception of him, he's a really nice guy. I have no idea who he is, but my perception is a nice guy because he'll like my comments. I'll see he likes other comments. He'll say something, so I don't know him, but I like him because he seems like a good, nice guy. But I don't really know what he does. And to me, and I'm saying this with, if he's listening or watching, there's no disrespect or anything like that. It's just more of this intellectual curiosity that he's able to make me feel like I know him and like him, but I'm not really sure what he does. And to be fair, I probably should reach out and say, hey, you think you're a great guy. Like, I want to get to know you. But I'll be honest, sometimes you feel weird doing that. So I didn't do it. But what would you suggest to him to I guess, is that a branding thing, Ryan, where he's just not really kind of, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it.
I think it's, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was going to say, yes, it's branding's positioning, it's messaging.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of things to unpack there, but it might have, something to do with the fact that you, Jack, are just busy consuming content and you're happy to just play on in that area without researching, without going to someone like Joe's content to figure out, because if there's no need, there's no need. If you've gotten what you need from his content or from Ryan's content or from Mark Anthony's content, then that's all you need. So there's kind of a schism going on. We're either playing in this content space and we're just consuming, or we want to take it to whatever the next step or next level is. And then you'd cross over the schism into the research activity where you'd want to look at the landing page and figure out, okay, what does Joel Lalgee actually do?
What does he do? Do you know? Do what?
Yeah, so he's
He's a recruiter.
And again, I don't mean to
yeah,
be
yeah, exactly. He's a
but I
recruiter.
think Jack said something that a lot of people think is that if I'm not clear about what you do, it's hard for me to engage further
Right.
with you. Is that
Right,
the overall theme of
yeah.
it? I mean, that is really, and that's part of the problem where people get stuck is that they don't know if I don't know what you do, and even though you have great comments. I mean, are you Robin Hood? Are you?
Or you feel embarrassed? Like you, I'll be very real. And then I feel a little awkward because if I say like, "Hey, I want to meet," and then he's going to assume I know about him and I don't know anything about him, and it puts me in a really weird, awkward spot.
Don't
you know?
because I think a lot of people understand that if you only know someone from their content, then you're not expected to know everything about them. And Joel's a little different. He's not a regular recruiter. He's a recruiter who teaches other recruiters how to fully leverage LinkedIn.
Okay.
So that's why you're constantly seeing.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay,
yes,
so that's why
you're seeing a lot of content which is not just recruiter related, but it's also personal. So you'll see a strong mix of personal content too. Which by the way is bringing it back to job seekers is an enormous opportunity, because a lot of, I think, potential content creators who happen to be job seeking might think, well, what on earth do I have to share? I mean, I'm not sure exactly how to produce content here. Well, the good thing now on LinkedIn is that you can start talking about your life, and
there's a lot more of that, right? It's definitely that's a bigger trend I'm seeing now.
That's as interesting as you want to make it. It's as much as you want to share.
But I think Joel gets a lot of clicks on his profile because there's an intrigue factor. Like you, Jack, you say, "Wow, he says a lot of good things. Let me see what else he's about," and therefore you will go dive into his profile. And that's a strategy that's kind of like 102, LinkedIn 102, 103, is build the intrigue. I mean, you can say who you are, but how much I can help you, that's where you have to click the profile. Now, if you don't hit it there, then you'll turn off a whole lot of people. But if you do hit it there, then it's, wow, okay, now I want to follow a little bit closer to see what else behind it, because you want to know the message behind the message sometimes. So therefore, that's where the storytelling aspect comes in. Now you're able to tell a deeper story because you built the intrigue and you built the ability to say, hey, you got me clicking. Now I just want to follow a little bit more timeline. You go see what the activity is, see what they're posting, you see what they're liking. You get to see all of that. And I think that's one of the beauties of doing that. And probably very few people can do that well. And I bet you that guy does it well. I can't remember if I've seen him or not, but I bet you he does it excellently.
Yeah, and just a quick point about storytelling is that he's mentioned this at least in a few posts that I've seen. He talks about when he first started on LinkedIn that it was really tough and that he got no engagement, found it really difficult to get any kind of traction on his early content. But he persisted. He didn't think, oh, well, this is never going to work, and so I may as well just give up. He just said, no, I'm just going to keep doing this until it starts to happen. And Ryan knows this. It takes years. It takes years to build up any kind of success or presence, and however you define that success on LinkedIn. And the expression that I used quite a lot, probably too much, is I'm an overnight success that took 10 years, right? And it's the same for Ryan. Ryan's smarter, better looking than me, so it obviously took him 5 years.
It's the camera. It's just the camera. It's the camera. I mean, that's like, so one of the things I do is I work with a lot of engineers, entrepreneurs, on helping them grow and scale their business. And a lot of them have this expectation of, hey, I posted on LinkedIn for 2 weeks. Why am I not getting business? Well, it's because you are a big, heavy airplane sitting at the end of a long runway. And all you did with those 2 weeks is get the engine started. Like, you have to be, it doesn't just take a long time, but you have to be consistent and over, like, it doesn't have to be the exact same day, but you have to, like, I mean, it helps if it is, though, especially if you're a podcaster, but you need to remember that it's a long runway. right? And even planes, when they're big, heavy planes, like they don't immediately go whoosh like this, right? It's a slow takeoff, and it takes time to get there.
Yeah. Does anybody have a hard stop at 1 o'clock or at the top of the hour? Because I like to go a little bit further because we're
I'm
really
good.
getting into something here where most people are really struggling with is the messaging, as we talked about earlier, Ryan, and the fact that there are people who really are wondering and trying to figure out, okay, how do I get the attention of the employer? How do I get the attention of a recruiter? How do I get attention of a peer or a colleague? How do I get attention, period? And a lot of it is about visibility, as we talked about.
Yeah.
People, and he said, you've got to be willing to listen, and listening, it takes a while. And to know what you're listening for is also something that you'll have to dig a little bit deeper than normal, right, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, as I said, you've got to be a great student. And the cool thing about that observe part of the acronym in Wolf is that a lot of this is playing out in public, isn't it? I mean, you can see whether a post is doing well or not. You can see if it's taken a dive and it's gone nowhere, and so you should learn from that. You should try and understand, okay, why has this not gone anywhere? What made it fail, or why, or the obverse. Why has this done really, really well, and how can I use the same techniques, not the same post, because you don't want to plagiarize, but the same approach. How can I use that myself in a way that works for me? And and so use all of the publicly available data and crunch that to understand what's going on, why is it working. It comes down to what you see in the threads, the discussion threads as well. So you can see when a comment has been upvoted, many times. I've seen double digit, triple digit, sometimes reactions on comments to posts where people are saying,
Mm-hmm.
this is exactly. I mean, I've seen more upvotes or more positive reactions on a comment than the post itself. So there's your opportunity as someone who wants to get the profile, get the visibility. Forget about producing content. Just look at posts of decision makers, people that you're in your top 10 that you're desperate to get on the radar, and then contribute something which is going to be so, I'll use a British term, gobsmackingly good, that it gets double digit upvotes. I call them upvotes, but reactions, and be that keen student, observe and figure out how it can work for you. And get creative too. Find different ways to get noticed. Certainly, make sure your landing page is looking great. Right, that goes without saying. But the rest of it is up to you. You can't rely on keywords. You can't just put in keywords and go, "Yep," lean back and say, "All right." Waiting for your offers. Waiting to be shortlisted. Waiting for that screener interview. No. That's not how LinkedIn works. LinkedIn is something that benefits. It's a platform that benefits, the proactive job seeker.
There's a reason why we have 2 paragraphs on keywords in our books, by the way.
Well, I think, I think though, and that's where you can tell the people who are truly people who study LinkedIn and have become or on their way to expertise, and those who just want to be because they want to put quick to all the sexy stuff like keywords. That's an easy thing to do, right? I mean, just putting some keywords in there that might matter to a lot of folks, and think that the algorithm is just going to gear towards you. And I think that's where people will start to quit because that didn't particularly happen.
Yeah. There was a LinkedIn Live that I watched last week, and the special guest was a lady who had achieved something remarkable. She landed a job with, I think it was Google, and she said, "You know how I did it? I figured out what the keywords were that for that specific role. I made sure the keywords that were there, that my skills certainly reflected those keywords, and I got an interview." And the rest is history. Now, that's not going to work for everyone, obviously, because she had has in-demand skills, and she's very data oriented. So she, that was fantastic, and to showcase that is great. But the reality is that if you don't have in-demand skills, you're not going to get that job with Google. So it's not as easy as that looks. I would say that's an outlier, frankly, because you got to, I think she's a data scientist too, by the way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
if anyone's going to nail keyword strategy, it's going to be her.
Yeah, if I can add one thing to this visibility thing.
Go ahead, Ryan, because
if you think raising your visibility is daunting, raise your visibility with one person at a time. Start there. Like when I started my podcast, I made sure anybody that I wanted as a guest, you, for example, I use Twitter a lot. I would find you. I would tag you, comment on your stuff. Like the sweetest sound to a person is their own voice. And so every time you acknowledge somebody in some way, they hear that, they see you. And then when you reach out to them, you are no longer like this unknown entity. You're actually somebody that they know and have seen. So always think about just raising your visibility with one person at a time, rather than going, oh, I got to create this whole big brand and all this stuff. One person at a time is all it takes.
Well, that's fantastic. And thank you for wrapping up the show like that. I know that you've got to go, Ryan. And Jack had to go. He did have a hard stop after all. Thank you, Andy, for joining us. No matter what the time is, maybe next time we'll have to have you on for an hour. And then we can really, but no, your contribution was excellent. Thank you very much. Ryan, thank you very much. Get their books, please, and you will have to go. You can go to their sites or go to Amazon to find out what LinkedIn Made Simple Fast Strategies is in book. In the meantime, we always stream to YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, my page particularly, every week, Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 o'clock Central. Thank you very much for joining the Job Seeker Nation. These guys got to go. We've got to go. Thank you very much. Join us next week. It'll just be me and Jack. There you go. Have a great week, y'all.
Bye, guys.
You too.